I'll repeat this. Recording has started. Let me get rid of this particular. Let me remove this. She already has it. So again, Ramses is our guest speaker. He is a CRC. We chatted a few days ago about his background and how he became to come to this role. And I wanted Niku to be introduced to a CRC so she can understand the day in the life of a CRC. Of course, there are always nuances for each site, each job, but overall, the background or the foundation is the same. So, Ramses, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, thank you for your time. So basically, I just want to know a little bit about Nico. Nico, your background is medical writer.
Yes, I'm a pharmacist. I graduated 3 years ago, and I have worked in the medical device industry as a medical writer.
Okay.
Yeah, in the last 3 years.
So where are you located now?
I am located in California.
Perfect. That's good. That's good. Actually, you have a pretty good degree and background to transition to clinical research because in research you don't. I mean, it exists a different kind of study even for devices. For the reason I say that you can transition because you have some transfer skill that you can take advantage in the clinical research. So basically, just let me share the normal day for a CRC. If you have any question, don't just ask me, okay? And
Sure.
I'm gonna answer for you. So look, CRC is clinical research coordinator, right? So,
Uh-huh.
but now that's not the first ladder. I know that you have your background as a medical writer, as a pharmacist. That's pretty good, actually. But now I say that your entry level position is gonna be clinical research assistant, no CRC. It depends about the site. I'm gonna explain you. You can work as a clinical research coordinator or assistant in two levels, basically. As a site level, it's like a company that runs studies, or in a hospital, right? So
Mhm.
that's the two places that you can work as a clinical research coordinator or as a assistant. When I say hospital, I'm talking about clinical research studies because you have another kind of research that is academic research. It's a different game.
Mhm.
So today I'm gonna talk to you about clinical research. When you are gonna be involved with patient in your daily days, you're gonna be involved with doctors, nurse practitioner, different kind of profession of the healthcare system. So I'm gonna talk about that, okay?
Mhm.
So now, basically, clinical research assistant and clinical research coordinator is the same. What is the difference is the experience most of the time, because now you have to get the experience in research. Because I told you before that you have some skills that you can transfer to the field, right? But you do
Mhm.
have the experience itself and research. So that's your first step to get your foot on the door. That's the first step. So now we're gonna say that you get your first job. We're gonna call it, I don't know, CRC or clinical research assistant. I don't care because basically it's the same. So it's normal. It's like a 9 to 5 most of the time, 9 to 5 job. You can do like in when you have like high enrollment study, like vaccine study, you have many subjects. You can work overtime even on weekends, but that is in special occasions. So it's gonna be like a normal job, 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, depends on the site.
Mhm.
Mm, and you're gonna have some duties. I'm gonna suppose that you're gonna start working as a research assistant or research coordinator, right? Because there's another entry level position like medical assistant, lab tech, but I'm not going to talk about that. If you want to know, you can ask me. But we're gonna keep like in mind that you are a clinical research coordinator or assistant. You're gonna go to your company, right? To your office. Most of the time you're gonna have in charge one story, two story, depend of your experience. It depends about how big is the company or how small is the company, right? For my advice is trying to start in a small company. Why? Because you're gonna learn everything. So you're gonna become like a generalist. You're gonna learn a little bit about everything. So now we're gonna suppose that you're starting in this small clinic, right? In this small site. Your day is gonna be like this. You're gonna go. The first thing that you have to check is your email. You have to be in your email every time because that's the main portal or platform that you communicate with the sponsor. Basically, the sponsor is the pharmaceutical company, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna call it Pfizer. So, and the first I say that's the way that I organize my time. That my first 15 minutes of my job, I review all my emails
Mm-hmm.
just to make sure that I end everything. Because, for example, if you're enrolling in a study, maybe they stop the enrollment. So now you cannot keep a screening. A screening is the first visit for a subject. The subject is the patient. You have to wait to call or to name a patient is subject or participant, right?
Mhm.
In this case, not patient, because you are not treating them, you are studying them. It's a
Yeah.
little bit different, right? So it's
Mhm.
not patient, it's subject and participant. Even though sometimes in the protocol they call it like patient, but the correct name is subject or participant. So you're gonna check your email. Then you have to review. Actually, it's in the previous day, but we are talking about like it's Monday today. Now you have your schedule of visits, right? So we're gonna say that you are in a new study and you have a previous study. What is the difference now? In your new study, basically you are doing a screening visit. As I told you, the screening visit is the first visit of the subject in the site, right? So you have to organize your schedule according to the subject's availability and the kind of visit. Why? Because most of the time, some visits require being fasting because you have to collect labs.
Mhm.
So you cannot request or you cannot ask to the subject, oh, please come to in the evening, in the afternoon, and be fasting, right?
Yeah.
It's against the good clinical practice, actually. And you have to be careful with that because the first thing is the subject, is the safety of the subject. So
Mhm.
if you are doing like a diabetes study, you cannot request the subject being fasting all day.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to organize. I know maybe sounds silly, but believe me, here in research, the details is pretty important. Even though that you're gonna change just a letter, just a word, you have to document that.
Mhm.
You have to change your mindset about, oh yeah, this is nothing, I'm gonna change it. No. In research, you have to document everything, right?
Yeah,
So
because if you don't document it, it never happened.
never
Yeah,
happen. It's not
that's
written, it
that's the
doesn't.
one thing. I don't know if not Nuco, but Nico, if you've heard of that. I'm sure you have, being in
Yes.
the industry at least for 3 years. If you didn't document it, it never happened. And then with Ramses, I want to ask you. So for you, I know some study coordinators have to draw blood, and I know you mentioned labs. Is
Yeah,
that something that you have to do? It's pertaining to
I
the protocol, and it depends on what the protocol asks for.
no, I actually, for the reason I recommend to start in a small clinic, because in the small clinic, in the small
Hmm.
site, you have to do it because you don't have
Hmm.
staff. For me,
Hmm.
that's good. It's more job for you, but you're gonna learn everything. And my position now, I don't have to collect it, but I know how to do it.
Okay.
And I know how to review all the kits, right? The lab kits. Oh, do you collected this? Oh, this venipuncture is not, that's not the technique. Now I can get like a high potassium for that. You see what I'm saying? You learn the techniques. So for that reason, I recommend a small site as your first experience because you're gonna learn everything, even though doing venipuncture or lab collection, even though that it's not your duty, but now you can do it. You're gonna learn how to process labs.
So does it mean that I need to have that certificate of drawing blood?
At least you're gonna have the medical assistant to draw blocks to draw blood,
Oh,
but you can have it with your background. For that reason,
oh.
I ask you your degree and everything, because you can get now the medical assistant through ARMA. ARMA is like a Association for Registered Medical Assistant. I think is the that's the meaning of the abbreviation ARMA.
Okay.
So you're gonna need the certification for medical assistant, and I recommend learn that because you're gonna increase your value. You're gonna
Mhm.
increase your value as a in the field. For me, always like looking for how to increase my value in the field too, because now the job market is hard. It's difficult. So by you bring more values, more skill, it's gonna be better for you. It's gonna be at the beginning you have to give more than that you are going to receive. That's
And
the
not and not only that, the medical assistant and getting her phlebotomy, which in this, depending upon the area,
Yeah.
Like let's say the hospital that I work for in this area, you didn't need to get like a certification. They trained you on the job. But however, I think like in bigger cities or bigger hospitals, they require you to have that
No. Well,
certification.
actually,
But
yeah.
uh,
Actually, now, sorry for interrupt you. Actually, now I wouldn't say you that it's for the city. It's for the sponsor. The
oh,
sponsor. Yeah.
for the
The
sponsor,
sponsor,
yeah.
the
Thank
sponsor
you.
now they are requesting like some certifications. Even though let me share with you because I am the field now. They are asking for nursing to vaccine, to perform the vaccination, to give the vaccine to the subject, to for the injection. Before the pharmacist can do it, the medical assistant can do it. But now some sponsor they are requesting that it's gonna be like must be a physician, must be a nurse practitioner or nursing. So the game is changing now in the field. There are some sponsors they are requesting more. So for that reason, I say always it's pretty good to have some certifications. Not because you have to. I never think like I have to. It's like what is better for me. How can I bring more value? Because it's another guy is waiting for my position. So I want to give more value. I want to grow. I want to give something, and I want to learn. You see, so but now I would say that some sponsors are requesting more. So at least medical assistant is gonna be very helpful for you, pretty helpful, right? Because for the coordinator you don't need basically anything. Bachelor in science good, but I know people that is a bachelor in arts and they're working as a CRC. So I don't say that for a CRC you need for CRC. For me, the only thing that you need is experience, but to perform some duties, you need some certification too. So for that reason, I would say that medical assistant it's basic for me. You have to get it for the sponsor, not for the state, not for the city, but for the sponsor. It's gonna depend which kind of sponsor you are working with. You see?
Because at the school we learned how to give shots, like I know how to inject and everything, but we never draw blood. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah. You don't have. You don't have to do it if they have like a lab tech. But
Mm-hmm.
when you start in a small site, they most of the time they don't have like a lab tech to do that.
Oh.
And actually it's a pretty simple skill that you can learn in 1 2 days. So it's not a big deal. And don't overthink about that. I just giving you example
Mm-hmm.
that you can do in your daily basis. And for me, if you know more, you increase your value. That's the way that I see this. So basically, but you are not in charge to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so don't be worried about that. So now we are talking about like the basis. So you're gonna perform is better. It's gonna depend about the site availability, the kind of visit, but you're gonna perform first the fasting visit. The site that require being fasting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna have different kind of visits, different kind. I would like the screening visit is one of the most common, and you're gonna have one of the most important visits. That is the randomization. The randomization visit is when you're gonna give the subject for the first time the investigational product or the medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be really careful with this visit because this visit is the most important visit in all the study. It decides everything because at this point you have your duty as a coordinator is to review all the labs. You see, review all the labs, all the inclusion and exclusion criteria. That's your
Uh-huh.
duty, right? To
Yeah.
review everything before randomize the subject. It's better to do an screen failure and to do it like a bad randomize. So you have to be really careful for this basic. Now, during the visit, you have to perform something that is called a scale of activities, right? What is a scale of activities? Depending on the visit, you have to perform, for example, vital signs that you're gonna do it. You're gonna have to perform basic physical examination that is with the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Then most of the time you're gonna perform the pregnancy test. Most of the
Uh-huh.
time for females, right? For the term is child beater potential is for all females that there is a possibility to get pregnant. You have to perform pregnancy.
Mhm.
Even though I work with some study that the sponsor requests, even though that the subject has 70 years old, you have to perform.
Yes.
You have to
I,
collect the pregnancy test.
I've seen that whenever I worked as an in-house CRA, I saw that too, and we would question like, okay,
Right.
why are we even
Why
doing
not?
this for a 70-year-old? It's that's part of the requirements,
Part of the
and
requirement. So in this, in research, you have to, I mean, you think of course your opinion matters, but you have to follow the protocol.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
You see, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense to collect a pregnancy test. This, you know, this woman has a hysterectomy 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
But if the protocol requires that, you have to perform.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Even though it doesn't make sense, even though it doesn't matter. You have to do it. Because if you don't collect the pregnancy test, you're gonna have something called protocol deviation.
Hmm.
Okay.
So what is a protocol deviation? Is when you didn't or you did something that is not in the protocol. You can do more or you can do less, and that is a protocol deviation.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If you collect blood and in a visit that doesn't require that, it's a protocol deviation.
Okay.
Sometimes it's gonna depend about the protocol, but for sure, if you don't collect it, if you didn't collect the blood, it's gonna be a protocol deviation, and you're
Okay.
gonna have two different kind of protocol deviation: minor and major.
Oh.
It depends on the severity, right?
Uh-huh.
So, I know there is a lot of information. I don't want to overwhelm, but this is your day. I just like to remember the thing that
Mm-hmm.
I do every day. The thing that I do every day. When you have a protocol deviation, you have to know if this is it affects the safety of the subject. You're gonna have to report to an organization that is called IRB,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Institutional Review Board.
Yeah.
That required. That's like a third party that take care of the right of the subject.
Uh-huh.
So that's a huge thing. So for that reason, you have to be really careful with this kind of basis about randomization, right?
Uh-huh.
Because for that reason, you have the inclusion and exclusion criteria.
Okay.
So we're gonna say that you finish this visit. So nowadays right the technology you can complete the forms or the document in two ways on paper or in digital, the e-source. The source document is basically the document when you complete or you put like every information that you did in the visit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to do it according to time for the reason. Let me explain this. For example, this first thing in a screening visit is the ICF, informed consent form, right? You consent the subject. Then of that, depending on the protocol, you enter the subject in the IRT. That is the platform when the subject is gonna be assigned a number for the study.
Uh-huh.
Because now you're gonna know the subject not as a Ramses. It's like the 78001. Now
Uh-huh.
that's my ID in this
Mm-hmm.
study. Then you're gonna keep going with the visit. But for example, if you have to write because the protocol or the EDC, you know what is the EDC?
No.
Okay, the EDC is all your information that you did in the visit in a sponsored platform, right? You write your information, but this information must be translated or in the portal for the sponsor. In that
Hmm.
way, they review your data.
Uh-huh.
So let me explain why this is important. For example, if the EDC, this platform, asks you for the time, you need to have the time in your source document, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in your scale of activity, the first thing is ICF. Let's say that you did the vital sign first. If you have the time, it's gonna be like 8 a.m. vital sign and 9 a.m. ICF. That's a big problem. That's a big problem because you did something wrong. Because the first thing that you have to do is the ICF. You see what I'm saying? Everything must match here.
It should be consistent between what you have and what is in the portal for the
And
sponsor.
what the protocol requires.
Yeah.
That's the game. That's the game of the research. You have to follow the protocol, right? And you
Uh-huh.
cannot alter, even though that you think, oh yeah, but I just wanted to know if the subject has a good blood pressure. You don't have because they have to give you the allow you to collect the blood pressure, the temperature, all that stuff. So in
Okay.
research, it's not like what you think, it's what it is. basically.
Okay.
So Ramses, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Can you give her an example of a deviation that you have experienced that you had to um, either correct, or either you've done yourself and you had to go back and correct, or somebody else did it? Is there one deviation that you can example that you can give to Niku?
Yeah. There are pretty common protocol deviation. I would say that, or if a coordinator told you that I didn't have any protocol deviation when I started, is a liar. You're gonna have
Yeah,
protocol deviation. You're gonna have protocol deviation always, for
yeah.
whatever reason. Sometimes it's not your fault, but you're gonna have protocol deviation. One of the most common is the ICF, the informed consent form. The informed consent form is the legal document that the subject sign. That is like in with this document they say, okay, I understood what is about this study. I want to participate voluntarily. You see, that's the way that the sponsor know that they read all the document, that they give you the permission to do all this stuff. For example, if you forgot to write an initial, a subject initial, if the subject didn't write the subject initial on that document, that's a protocol deviation.
Oh, okay.
They didn't. That's one of the most common, because sometimes it's like initials and you don't see the line, right? Because you are doing many visits at the same time, then different kind of visit. So that is a pretty common for the ICF, because the subject maybe didn't write the initial, didn't sign one page, or you didn't sign one page. So that's a pretty common protocol deviation. Another pretty common is it's the same for the ICF, is something that is called reconsent. What is a reconsent? Sometimes the sponsor, they can modify the protocol. If they say, I'm gonna give you this example, I want to pay more to the subject, $50 more, right? $50 more. Even just because I want to pay more, they need the permission by the subject that they agree that they want to receive the money.
Oh, okay. I
So
see.
they're gonna give you now a new ICF, because in the ICF must be established even the compensation, right?
Okay. I
So you
see.
have to reconsent the subject. You have to give them another document. If you don't do that, that's a protocol deviation too, because
Oh,
the subject is like is in the study, but they didn't sign the new ICF. That's
I,
another protocol deviation. That's a pretty common, because sometimes you have that is something called amendment. The amendment is the modification in the protocol, right? So that's another pretty common. The other common is you didn't collect some labs. You forgot the urine analysis, the urine sample. That's another protocol deviation, because you didn't collect some study. Or another protocol deviation is because the electrocardiogram must be performed before venipuncture or lab collection, and you did it after. That is a protocol deviation, because you didn't follow the protocol.
okay.
Because the protocol is told you is must be before lab collections. Right? That's another very common protocol deviation. So now you did all this business, right? You have to make sure that this document, I don't care if e-source or is on paper, depending on the site, everyone must sign the source document, the doctor, you, the lab technician, all the person involved. You have to make sure that everything is right.
Okay.
Everything is initial, the date, and everything is right before to enter the information to Medidata or another EDC platform. You see. So now you finish the visit, but now you have to follow up your previous visit, because we're gonna say that yesterday I did another visit, right? A visit 3 for another study. I have to follow up that subject to get the labs results,
Okay.
right? It's not only the visit, it's not only the signatures, it's not only the ICF, it's everything, and you're gonna be in charge of everything as a coordinator, right? So you have, for that reason, I post on LinkedIn that the most important skill in research is time management. Believe me, I told this very fast, but it's not in that way. and you have to be like really careful, detail oriented. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be organized. You have to have time management actually. So now if you have a doubt about the protocol because you don't understand any some aspect about the protocol, you have to ask to the sponsor what is your first, like the first person that you have to ask, the CRA, okay, is the clinical research associate
Uh-huh.
or the monitor. That is like the monitor is between, is like they talk with the sponsor and with you. So you ask them and they ask to the sponsor and they give you a reply.
Okay.
So for example, if you ask, oh, I don't know, I don't understand if I have to collect the FSH. FSH is a sample, is a labs for postmenopausal female.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I have to collect it. Please, can you guide me on this matter? Right? So until you get the answer, you cannot do anything because you
Mhm.
don't know now if you have to collect it or not in females, right? So
Yeah.
you have to receive the information. If you don't receive their answer, you have to follow up those kind of emails. And that's the thing that I did or that I do in the afternoon. Follow up all the emails that I have pending. Hi, hi, Alicia. Do you receive any answer for the email below?
Mm-hmm.
Please help me with this, right? Because you have to follow up.
So you ask your question from CRA.
Yeah, you have your question to your CRA for this specific study
Okay.
because you're gonna have different CRA for different studies.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you have to ask to the specific CRA and you have to follow up with them,
Okay.
right? But you
Yeah.
have to follow up because you need remember you need to bring the subject to the site to do your job, and you have to get the answer to do it right. Because what happened with protocol deviation is bad reputation for the site because it's like, oh, you don't do the you don't do like in the right way this story. So you have to take care of the reputation of the site,
Uh-huh.
because they see, oh yeah, this site always has all this kind of protocol deviation. Another common protocol deviation is a out of window visit.
That's a good one. That's a
That's
good one.
what is an out of window. You're gonna have, for example, now you do or you did like the screening basis first, right?
Uh-huh.
Now you have all the lab results.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you have all the inclusion criteria, the subject met all the the inclusion criteria. Is everything good? So you randomize the subject, right?
Uh-huh.
To do this, you're gonna have a period of time to do it. It's gonna depend about the study. I have a
Mhm.
study that the period from a screening visit to randomization is 7 days. That is tough because you have many subjects and you have to perform the randomization visit before the 7 days in
Okay.
order to be like compliant with the protocol. With this kind of visit, the problem is if you are out of window from a randomization visit, you cannot perform the visit. Now it's a screen failure, or you have to rescreening to collect another labs or that stuff. And it's different from when the subject you already randomize the subject and you're gonna perform follow-up visits, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you already randomize the subject and you're gonna perform like a visit for, you know, this visit has a period of time, maybe 1 week, maybe 15 days, and you're gonna have minus plus 3 days. You have to play with the dates, right? So we're
Uh-huh.
gonna say the subject is out of the state. So now it's a follow-up visit. You already randomize the subject. The subject is already on IP, the investigational product. You can perform this visit. Most of the time, I recommend ask for permission to the sponsor. Oh, look, I have this subject I did with this problem because she's for a family emergency out of the state, so I have to perform the visit 2 days out of window. You see?
Uh-huh.
So now they're gonna reply, okay. Most of the time they're gonna say, yeah, yeah, no problem, you can do it, but that is a minor protocol deviation because now you didn't follow the protocol because you performed the visit 2 days later. It makes sense for you?
Yeah, it's just like, but it's like, well, stuff happens. It's like it's not my fault. Like the patient was out of state. So you said that this is a minor
A minor,
deviation, right?
yeah. But the difference is now this patient, the example that I gave you, that I
Uh-huh.
gave you, It's in a follow-up visit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in a follow-up visit after you randomize the subject. Most of the time, when you haven't randomized the subject yet and the subject cannot come to the site during that period, you cannot randomize the subject. You're gonna lose that subject, or you have to rescreen it because they failed the period. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get it? That
Yeah, I do.
okay? Perfect. That's good. So now, the let me tell you about the relationship between CRC and principal investigator, Alicia.
Yes.
So, okay, a coordinator can be whatever, can be like, even though the principal investigator is the medical doctor, is the person who is in charge about that specific study. Is the medical doctor for that study. He can decide many things about the subject. He has to, or she has to oversight everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he has to oversight everything about the inclusion, exclusion
Let's just,
criteria.
let's just
So
say.
a site level, that is your person that you have to communicate everything about the subject. For example, okay, doctor, uh, tomorrow we're gonna have a randomized subject. Please, I already reviewed the labs. If you can review it and you can sign, or and let me know if there is like a clinical significant finding, because labs or any findings now is gonna be categorized in two type of categories. Is the first one is clinical significant, that is something like important, or
Mm-hmm.
non-clinical significant, maybe a high glucose, but that is
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah, we have done it as I was a medical writer. I would go through
perfect,
research that I've
perfect,
done.
that's good. So in research, that's the term, right? So
Yeah.
you're gonna do the daily job, right? Receive the labs, call to the subject, schedule the visit, but the doctor is the person who decide, okay, this subject qualify.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this subject, or if there's something happen about an adverse event, decide, say, okay, this is related or not related with the medication, with the investigational product. If you have a medical concern, or you have like any concern about the subject, the safety of the subject, the person that you have to ask first is your principal investigator, it's your medical doctor, right?
Uh-huh.
So you always ask everything related to the subject to the principal investigator. That is gonna be your relationship. You're gonna perform the visit. You're gonna do all the visit, but the doctor is the person who oversight everything. He say, okay, the subject can continue in the study, or the subject must be discontinued for this study for whatever reason.
So the PI is always a medical doctor.
It's always medical doctor. I think the only the is, for example, you have a study about dental stuff, you're gonna need a dentist.
Dentist, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing that there is not a medical doctor. Sorry,
Oh.
in those kind of study, maybe because it's not he or she expertise, or his or her expertise.
And just to add, I will be interviewing my PI tomorrow. And yeah. And so, like, from a site owner's perspective, the PI obviously has to be an MD or MD or DO.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They cannot be barred from any participating in any clinical trials. So that's kind of like a side note, maybe extra information. And let me think of something else with the PI. They have to be board certified, to my understanding. They have to be board certified. So you can continue. Just had to add that in there.
Yeah, sometimes the PI must be like different qualification. For example, you have a cardiology study. Sometimes the sponsor gonna require that the principal investigator of this study must be like a cardiology. But that is in special situations, right? Most of the time, and they're gonna be like family medicine, internal medicine specialist. But in some study they require a specific specialty. So maybe that is in another case that is going to be a different kind of principal investigator. Yeah, but that is your first person that you have to ask about something about the subject of the during the visit or after the visit if you have any doubt. But you have a doubt. For example, I'm gonna give you the example. If you really talk to your principal investigator, and maybe both you don't understand the protocol, that's in that moment you have to ask to your monitor or to your CRA for more information about the protocol. You never gonna ask to the sponsor or to the monitor uh, about the safety of the subject. What can I do because this subject has this condition? That's your principal investigator, right?
Mhm.
So
Okay.
just to make you all the difference between the communication that you have to know to you have to know what person do I need to ask something,
Uh-huh.
right? Which kind of question do I need to ask for this specific person?
Okay. Yeah.
So let me see. Let me see something.
I just thought about she will also, whenever I worked as an in-house CRA, um, the CRAs were actually the individuals, they called them field CRAs or something like that. But we were like the in-between individuals. So say for instance, whenever they were out in the field doing their monitoring visits, we had to actually go through and pull like our EDC reports to make for sure like the study coordinator has answered the EDC queries, or if they're late, we need to find out of the reasons why. So it's almost like a full circle. So we communicate that with the CRAs, we communicate that with the site, but a lot of times we had to pull those reports and say, hey, this is what's has not been answered. Is there a reason why? And they can go through the reports themselves. And sometimes whenever we had our site monitoring calls, those were the discussions that we had as well. And then also like the CVs, from my understanding and from what I learned, the CVs have to be updated every 2 years along with the GCP
Yeah,
certifications.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So we had to make for sure that those were updated in the CTMS system. And
Mhm.
that's another report that we were able to generate to see whether or not those were updated. If not, we would contact the CRCs and ask for them to give us an updated version of the CVs, the PICV, even their CVs, GCP certifications. And then also, it's right on the tip of my tongue. What's another one that I'm missing?
For what?
Um, the collection, the CVs.
The
GC,
delegation log?
yes, that's the yeah,
Yeah.
that's the other one. So those had to be updated as well with the correct staff
The
at
correct duties.
yes, with the
Yeah,
correct duties.
yeah, yeah.
And the Form 1572s as well. We had
Yeah.
to those.
So actually, I know you are familiar with all these concepts, Nico, that we talk about queries,
No, I'm not.
1572 forms. Okay.
No, I'm not familiar with those forms. And also this ECP certificate. Is
Okay.
it something that I can get like off the internet, or I need to
Yeah, you
take
can
a
get it.
course?
You can get it for city program. That's the most common city.
Mm-hmm.
CITI program.
CITI program. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can get the GCP from there.
Okay.
Okay, let me explain. I think in research we can talk about research, like hours and hours,
Of
but it's
course.
gonna be difficult to explain you everything just
Mhm.
in one time. But for example, Alicia talk about something important about this 1572 form. This is the legal document that is with the principal investigator credentials and site credentials and all the vendors. What is a vendor is the lab that you are going to use. If you need, for example, to do another study in another clinic, you have to put all this information in this form, and the sponsor and all these organizations have to approve it. So you have to have this form updated always. If you're gonna make a change, you have to change this form too.
Okay.
So that's the 1572 form, basically. The other thing that Alicia mentioned was about queries. So the, this is like, it's simple. It's all the doubts or whatever question that the sponsor has about your data, basically. You see, so for example, they're gonna open a query in the platform for your data. They're gonna ask you about, mm, let me see. For example, they're gonna ask you why this condition is mild, or why
Mm-hmm.
this condition the investigator, you know, assess that is moderate. I don't see any medication for this condition. This kind
Mhm.
of queries you are not able to answer because it's about the safety of the subject, about the assessment of the investigator. So you have to ask him or ask her about this query, and they're gonna give you the guidance how to answer it, right?
Uh-huh.
But they're gonna be some queries that you can answer, basically, because they're gonna say, okay, because you can do like a typo error. You can write like like we're gonna say, if your monitor is reviewing your data and you write or you wrote in your document, I don't know, like 80 kilogram for the weight, but you type it in the EDC 82. So they're gonna open a
Mm-hmm.
query. They're gonna say, oh, this is not real. This is not the same as the source document. So please
Okay.
correct this. So you can correct that because you already have the information in the source document. This is pretty simple query that you can answer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if a medical monitor, the medical monitor is the medical doctor, but the sponsor, right? Right.
Okay.
The principal investigator is your medical doctor, but the
Uh-huh.
medical monitor is from the sponsor. For example, if they ask about some condition of the subject, you have to ask to your principal investigator in order to get the answer.
Uh-huh.
You do you understand the difference, right?
Yes, yes. There are some questions that I can answer, and there are some questions that I need to ask to BPI to be
Yeah,
answered.
and as a
Okay.
coordinator, you have to identify this
Yes.
kind of query because you can resolve many, 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 many kind of queries. Because
Mhm.
sometimes the data management, they ask you something, they are wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, oh, as per protocol or as per ECRF guidelines, this form must be completed in this way. You can do it because you have the protocol and you have the ECRF or the guidelines how to answer those kind of information in EDC. Or so I don't know you have any question because I know it's many things in a row. So I don't know you
Mm-hmm.
want to ask something because you're gonna keep doing this every day, every day,
Mm-hmm.
every day. And it's part of your job that you have
Uh-huh.
to keep an eye on everything about the emails, about the study, about the all kind of visits that you're gonna have. So for that reason, I schedule my time as I mentioned at the beginning. The first 15 minutes review the emails,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Prioritize them. Yeah.
prioritize them. Then I start my visits. Depend how
Uh-huh.
many visits I'm gonna have in the day. I'm gonna
Yeah.
finish the visits. I'm gonna review all the portals for the lab results, or if I do another kind of a study about, for example, for blood pressure, and the subject is performing like a ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. So you're gonna have to get a report for a different platform. I review all the things that is pending,
Uh-huh.
and everything that you print out must be signed by the investigator, the labs, all the reports, and you have to file it if you are working with paper or upload it according how you are working in the site. And basically, that's the thing that I do in my afternoon. In the afternoon after lunch, I do
Mm-hmm.
all review again all the emails. If I follow up the email, I review all the portal. I file everything. I make sure that everything is working well. Now that's a day when you already started a study, but your day is gonna change if you have a monitoring visit. What is a monitoring visit? Basically, is the your monitor or your CRA come to your site to review your data. So now you have to give them all the information that they need in order to review your data, right?
Uh-huh.
So, or another different day, and when you are starting and a different study, and you're gonna have something called SIB, site initiation visit. This is the first time that you're gonna know your monitor, and they're gonna talk about the study at that moment. I always recommend before SIB, you have to know your protocol in order to ask all the doubts, because you want to catch up everything at the beginning, nor why you are doing the study. So that is a SIB. That is the first time that you're gonna know your possible monitor, and they're gonna explain you and they're gonna answer your doubts about this specific study. So another different day is when you have an investigator meeting. What is investigator meeting? Is the global meeting for all the sites involved in this study. Can be remotely or can be in another state. Right? But most of the time, you have to be at least remotely by computer to learn about the study. And some cases they're gonna grant it some certificates about this study, because for each study you have to perform training, right? And you have to complete all your training before starting the first visit. In order, the sponsor give you this green light. What is a green light? The permission to start doing the first visit. So one of the requirement is to have all the trainings.
Okay.
So this is gonna be your day. Sometimes gonna be busy, or sometimes more relaxed. It's gonna depend which kind of study are you doing and how many study you are doing. So you have to manage your time.
Okay.
Very well,
And
very, very well.
And are you at the beginning, before everything starts, are you given the protocol to study?
They give you the protocol at the beginning. They're gonna send you. That's the regulatory part. The regulatory is like all the documentation is gonna be on time, right? So most of the time before the investigator meeting, most of the time, sometimes it happen a different way. You're gonna have at least the protocol and the guidelines. So you have to review it first to understand why, or to understand all the meeting. So you have to read, you have to discuss the protocol with your team and understand everything in order to get some questions if you want to ask during the meeting, investigator meeting or the SIB. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And so who do you have the most interaction with at the site? The PI and the CRA?
Really, it's everybody, but for the most part, it would be the PI. But a lot of times, like the ClinOps team, that includes the CRAs, maybe in-house CRAs, project managers, and clinical CTMs, clinical trial managers, data management. Who else am I leaving out right here?
Even for that, with the labs, regulatory department.
Yes, regulatory department. Yes.
As a coordinator, you forget the finance department. Finance department is very important. Sometimes when you have a doubt about the compensation, about what is in my budget, how many subjects do I have for this study, that is the part of the budget for the study, because sometimes they're gonna give you like a ratio. So they're gonna pay you the bills to the side at least. So, for example, they're going to tell you, so if you randomize 2 subjects, I'm going to pay 1 screen failure. So you have to know how many screen failure you have, how many, all this stuff about finance too. What is in your budget, if you can pay, for example, the Uber, if it is in your budget or not. So all this stuff is part of your job too with finance department. You have to keep communication with everyone. So, but basically for the safety of the subject, with the principal investigator, for any doubt about the protocol, with your monitor, and it depends about how it's organized your site or the clinic, you're going to be in touch with all the departments. For example, you have lab techs, maybe you have a doubt about, do you collect the optional sample for this study because it's frozen? Or do you ship the ambient sample because it must be shipped today? So you're gonna keep in touch with everyone.
Okay.
So we can one more question for you, even though I just want to ask questions, maybe if she does not have any questions. So can you explain to her what triggers a site payment? I remember whenever we had as an in-house CRA, As long as everything matched, you had the patient visit in the EDC system, and it actually matched the information in the CTMS system. We actually had to check and see, like, okay, if the information in the CTS system, let's say the patient had a visit on November the 12th, this is their visit to November 12th for this particular assessments. Then we go into EDC to make sure all the assessments were done. Whatever was supposed to be done that day, it has to match in both systems. And then what we would do is check it off. And for our side, on the CRO side, that would trigger site payment. So I'm not sure how it works for you.
Yeah, it was the same for everyone.
Okay.
But
Okay.
for example, what triggers a payment for the site? I'm talking about not for the subject. The subject, you already know the compensation, right? You have for example, the EDC, right? How you mentioned, all the regulatory stuff, and you have to match everything. You perform this visit, this kind of visit has these kind of procedures, you know, because every visit is different, and they're gonna pay different. So gonna say that you match all the information. Now with all this, you make sure that all this information is correct, and you're gonna invoice this, right, to the sponsor of the CRO. The CRO is not the sponsor; it's like a different company that the sponsor hired, to manage all this stuff. So now you match everything in DDC, your dates are gonna be right, the kind of visit that you are like invoice. The invoice is like, okay, sponsor, I did this, please pay me this. But you have to give the invoice, right?
Okay, I see.
That's the way that now the triggers the side payment.
So that's a very delicate job, right? In a very delicate task for the side payment, that you have to be careful what your budget really, how do you do the budget?
If it is in the budget and you did something, for example, you pay like transportation, and you didn't establish that in the budget, the sponsor is not gonna pay for that.
So they give you initially a budget, and then you need to come up with how to modify it.
Yeah,
or
at the beginning you
come up with
negotiate.
budget?
At the beginning, you're gonna negotiate your budget.
Oh, okay.
You have
Budgets and contracts at the beginning. Yeah.
So then with the invoice, actually, you perform, of course, all the visit, and you make sure that everything is matched. But if you don't give the invoice to the sponsor, never gonna trigger the payment. So you have to like give them the invoice about everything that you did, and they're gonna give you the payment.
So how do you, as an entry level, how do you negotiate your budget?
No, most of the time you are not going to do that.
You don't, but as part of, that's something you'll see like after the fact. The budgets and negotiations are already done, and then everybody gets hired after the fact. However, whenever you are entering in, let's say the data, whatever visits occur, you just have to make sure everything matches. And you're not the only one that's going to be responsible for everything that is supposed to be matching in the computer and EDC and CTMS. That's up to the ClinOps team as well. So again, it all comes back in full circle. Everybody's almost doing a check and double check to make sure everything is cohesive, it's right, it's in alignment with the protocol. And even sometimes you mentioned patient transportation. Let's say that a subject is like an hour, 2 hours away, and they may not, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a little while, they may not have the finances to travel to the site. I've seen times where the project manager and the CTM will actually go to the sponsor, have a meeting with them, because of this is the information that the study coordinator has given to the ClinOps team. And so they get together and say, hey, this is the information that we have for this particular subject. We really need this subject to come back through, or they can't come through because of these issues here, financial issues. And a lot of times the sponsor, if it's in the budget, and if they can, they'll go ahead and approve transportation, like a transportation card. And then there are a couple different other systems, a vendor, I think it's called I can't think of it. Yes, Greenfire. Yeah. I think it's set up to where it's it'll give patients the money that they need, depending upon what the sponsor has approved.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way. But you have to the approval of the permission first. You cannot
Yes.
do it. You cannot do it. I mean, you have to request first, and
Yes.
then when they give you the final answer, you update the budget and everything, and now you can start doing this stuff. For example, the transportation, but everything must be written.
Okay.
Everything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you
Is
can
that
negotiate during the study, but you have to wait first for the answer before
mhm.
performing
Mm-hmm.
the action.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is there any situation that, for example, the CRC get penalized like financially? Do you have that kind of penalization or not?
No,
Penalty or not?
no, 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 because everything about the payment with the site, not with the CRC.
Okay.
So maybe the sponsor may tell you that I'm not going to pay this because it was not in the budget. It can happen, it may
Okay.
happen, but it's not for the CRC, it's for the site in this case.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a penalized because it's like you didn't perform this, or actually it wasn't in the budget, so why you did it, why are you gonna pay for that? So for the reason that is important of the finance department, because sometimes we forget about finance, about the
Uh-huh.
budget, about all this stuff, maybe because, oh yeah, money is not about me, but it's not about the money, it's about how the story is gonna run smoothly, right? So you're
Yeah.
gonna keep in touch, as you see, you're gonna keep in touch with everyone as a coordinator. That's the beautiful thing over here. So you're very important. Mhm.
One more question for you. Are you a part of the patient recruitment process? Because I know at some sites, some study coordinators are a part of the patient recruitment process. And sometimes the site may have certain events that they attend to, like outreach events that they attend to,
Yeah,
get
I
some patients in
I
or make.
always say that the coordinator must be in everything that you wanna ask me. You have to know about this. You have to do some, and at some level. It's gonna depend about the size of the site. I mean, it's a big site. Most of the time, you are not going to do the recruitment because they have their own department, because they
Mhm.
want you to keep doing visits, right? Visits. But you have to know how to recruit subject, because you're gonna perform something that is called pre-qualification. So, for example, you are doing like a diabetes study. So they ask you because there are some prohibited medication. So it's better for you to pre-qualify this subject. What is pre-qualify? Hello, Alicia. I know that now you are a diabetes subject, a patient with diabetes. So I also want to know which kind of medication you are taking now, right? Because I know you are interested in this study, but it's not allowed to be taking like metformin. That's a pretty common, right? Metformin. So do you take that? Or how long? I've been taking this medication. That's a pre-qualification. That's a process that you have to know how to perform. For example, recruitment is to call someone and say, oh yeah, hey, hello, my name is Ramses Davila, I'm trying to run this kind of study. I also want to know if you are interested to participate, right, in a vaccine study, for example. I don't know. So that is recruitment. Recruitment is a huge part of this of research, because they bring you the
Mm-hmm.
subjects. So you have to know how they do it, because they're gonna ask you, oh, hey, Nico, I have this subject that is interested to participate in this study, but he has this condition. What do you think about it? You are not going to decide about medical stuff. They are always just asking you about the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So you're
So
gonna review.
they give you like a list of people to call or something?
They pre-qualify. You
Okay.
can, yeah, you can know that it's illegal. You have to know what is legal and illegal.
Yeah.
Pre-qualify, because now you know about the study. Now you can do some pre-qualification to these
Mm-hmm.
activities. So one of them is asking, right? You are
Yeah.
not requesting anything. You are asking about, okay, I know you are interested, so I just want to know a little bit about your medical history, your medication. You're gonna ask, okay, I think you're a good fit for this study. Do you want to participate voluntarily? Yes, of course. So in that way, you're gonna perform the recruitment, the pre-qualification activities.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
How much time do you have left, Ramses?
Yeah, I have time.
You do? Okay. Niku, how about you? Because there was another part of this I wanted to get through briefly.
Sure.
I told
I have
her,
time. I'm
huh?
available. I have time. I'm available.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
I wanted to get through the day in the life of a CRC. Niku, or do you have any questions about that you can ask Ramses for this
Not
part?
at the moment. Not at the moment.
Okay. All right. And then what I wanted to do was go through like an interview prep with her. Um, you, I'm going to add this to the stage right quick. And give me just a second, just to kind of go over some interview questions with her. Can you actually, you know what, can you explain after I go through this with her, the interview process that you had? And then I've got some interview questions with her. We don't have to go through all these, but these are just some interview questions that I thought about based upon her resume. I know with any interview questions, of course, they're wanting to know, tell me all about yourself, give it basically the synopsis of your resume. And usually they want to hear what maybe 1 to 1.5 minutes of who you are and what you can basically, how can you solve the company's problem? Because that's usually what they're looking for. How are you going to be beneficial to the company? And then why are you wanting to switch from a medical writer to a CRC role? And what do you know about it? So, and then how familiar are you with the ICH GCP and site level responsibilities in a clinical trial? We just kind of went over that today with Ramses. And then, as I said, I won't go through, I need to redo these. I won't go through all these questions, but these are some of the questions that I have on here. But Ramses, do you have any tips for her as far as interview prep?
Yeah, I would like, just give me a second. I don't know why just give me a second. Okay. Nico, you can read all the question and actually look for a better answer for expert about this, but I'm going to give you, for me, the real tips on the real life, not according how to answer this kind of questions, because you can look for on YouTube and all that stuff. But I'm gonna tell you from my experience and the thing that I thought that or I think that is work now. So, for example, this apply for any interview. I've done several interviews. Believe me, I've done several interviews because at the beginning, the most difficult part of research is the first experience to get your foot on the door. That's the most difficult part. That's the most difficult part, Nico, and you have to knock the door, right? So it's a good thing that if you start doing interview, always say yes, always. Go to the interview because you're gonna learn something. Okay, now always be prepared about the company. You have to research about the company.
Absolutely.
Because not only about the job, it's about the company. Why do you want to work with us? Just because you want the experience? Oh, I don't need you, right? So it's like research about the company. Now you are in the interview. You have to answer their question. Let them talk. They're gonna ask you something, and please answer the specific question. Don't talk more. Answer the question. So now, when they let talk, always they're gonna ask you something, or they're gonna say, "Do you have a question?" Please always bring some question, because in that way you're gonna show interest. So
Absolutely.
you have to ask. You have to take control of the interview. When I say taking control of the interview, is not talking more. It's about asking questions. Show your interest. For example, you're gonna say, yeah, and which kind of study do you run? Oh, really? And how many years have you been in this business, right? Because I searched that something about you, and you're gonna like giving feedback to them. So for that reason, I came here because I really want to work in this kind of study that you run, right? So you are showing the interest. So, for example, if they ask you, and always ask, why you? What is some about the reason that they wouldn't hire you? What do you think, what is my main weakness in this interview? So, and they're gonna like give you some tips, and that way you can learn from that interview, because for me, the reward is gonna be the learning process. Even though you didn't or you don't get the job, right? So always, for me, the most important part when I do an interview is asking questions. But first I let them talk, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the most important things in an interview. Always dress well, of course. Always dress well. Always show with confidence. Always say why you are. Why do you think that? What is the value that you bring? It's not your, believe me, it's not your degree. There are many people with other degrees that want to work in that. And
Uh-huh.
research in that place is the value that you can bring, being proactive, right? Explaining about your transferable skills. That's very important. Okay, you're gonna say, yeah, actually, I got trained in research with a, in a group like this one with Alicia, and I learned about this about research. So I know that I have this skill that I can bring to this company, and I really want to grow with you because I know you are doing many study or you are doing this kind of study. So you are telling them that you have some experience,
Uh-huh.
right? And that you are willing to work with them in order to grow. And that way you are giving them something, not asking them for something.
Yeah.
You see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I learned this, I have these skills, I want to bring you my skills, and I want to grow with you. So for me, it's like that's the best way because they're gonna ask you, oh, tell me more about yourself. Be prepared about all these questions. That's pretty normal. But you can find a better answer in YouTube and all that stuff. I don't like to overthink in an interview. I just answer the question and then I take advantage of my time and I ask question. You know,
Mm-hmm.
trying to give because that's the only way. A resume is only a document. They can see, oh yeah, NICU, pharmacist, medical writer. They're gonna say, oh, Ramses, blah 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 blah. They're gonna have many resume, but now
Mm-hmm.
resume is not your better tool because maybe there are someone who has more experience than you. For me, the most important is what you bring to the table. So the interview is the only way that you can show that.
Okay.
Asking questions, being proactive
Mm-hmm.
about time management. I know in research the most important is time management because I was in a group that told me about that because I'm really interested to start in this field. You are showing your better tool is your interest and your willingness to work hard.
Okay.
Actually, that's your better for me tool that you have now. Not your resume because you cannot like for my experience I don't like to fight against resume. What is the better degree in research? The most important is the experience. So if you are willing to work hard at the beginning and grow with them, I think they're going to hire you,
Okay.
right?
Uh-huh.
So for me that's my best tips for that is asking questions, bringing taking control of the interview, let them talk, research about the company, knowing about them, about which kind of study they run, you know, which kind of transferable skill that you have. And then you can look for the most common question about in an interview, you're going to answer. But now the problem in an interview is they have many resume on the table,
Mm-hmm.
right? So your first impression is going to be very important for you.
Okay.
So for me, that is it. Maybe it's gonna open door for you at the beginning. It's gonna be entry level position.
Uh-huh.
For me, that's pretty normal. I mean, it's not like because it's something wrong with you. There is something wrong with you. Is that's the job market now? You
Yeah.
end you start in an entry level, but you're gonna grow that. But
Yeah.
you have to want this. How badly
Yeah.
you want it, right? How badly you
Very bad. Very bad. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Right? How
Yeah.
about you want it? Because everyone we want motivation. I don't believe in motivation. I believe in discipline. And you know what is the good thing about applying jobs? It's free, and you can do it every day. And
Of course.
and of course you're gonna get rejection. But
Mm-hmm.
there is not a magic answer. There is not a magic solution to get hired,
And
right?
she can also, that's something that Damien and I, a little off topic that we discussed. She has a pharmacy background. The fact that she has a pharmacy background, she can really emphasize the importance of IP excursions, keep making sure that IP is either, at the temp that it should be, whether it's refrigerated or frozen. Um, what else? I can think of a pharmacy manual. Let's say if she needed to, if
Yeah,
she goes to like a site and needs to volunteer, you can emphasize the fact that this possibility she can help write the pharmacy manual because you have the PharmD
yeah.
experience, the background.
Okay.
and you have the medical writer. So now you know the medical terminology for too. So you have the medical knowledge that you need for a coordinator position, right?
Yes,
Even,
absolutely.
yeah, even though if you start as an assistant, you have the medical knowledge, you have the pharmacy knowledge too. You only need the coordinator experience now.
Okay. And
Yeah.
may I ask you how long, like, have you been in this position,
Oh
Ramses?
yeah, maybe around 3 years, almost 3 years now. But
Okay.
I've been growing in the position. So I started as a medical assistant with research focus, then as a research assistant, then as a CRC, now as a research nurse. So it's like keep growing in the field. So, but as I mentioned, how badly you want it,
Mm-hmm. Of
how
course.
badly you want that. If you want it, you're gonna get it. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get your first job. You see?
Yeah, it's just the job market right now is very rough. I am working very hard. I'm actively applying,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
pretty good. That's pretty good. And LinkedIn is a plus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. It's a very good platform, and you're gonna know recruiters. Some recruitment agency. I think it's a good strategy if you want to try it. Because I did it once. I contacted a recruiter, so
Uh-huh.
I sent them my resume, and because what is the good things about recruitment agency? The they want that you get hired because they're gonna get the pay for that. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
So
they have the motivation to get
they
you
have
hired.
the
Exactly.
motivation that you get your first job because they're gonna get
Mhm.
the reward because that's their job, right? So
Absolutely.
for that reason, it works sometimes. The only maybe cons about that is you're gonna most of the time you have to be in the job during at least 6 months, or depends, or in the pay is gonna be low most of them because they have to make money in that negotiation with the side. But
Hmm.
for me, in order to get the first experience in research, that's a good strategy that it worked for me once. I did it once, so it was good. Actually, this kind of mentorship, something like that, it helps you in your resume, and you have to write it. You have to put it in your resume.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's very important because actually all the information that I mentioned you today, or I told you today, you didn't know about that. Now
Yes.
you have another terminology to talk in the interview. Oh yeah, I know you don't have experience, but you know all these terms about queries, about ICF, and you know that everything must match, right? So they're gonna give you that you did your job.
I see. Yeah, of course. Of
You
course.
see?
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have experience in this. However, if this were to occur, this is how I would handle it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Because I guess you have to start from somewhere, right? For
Yes,
Yes,
everyone,
you
it's just
will.
absolutely.
Okay, I think this was a very productive session for
absolutely,
Niku.
absolutely.
Niku, how do you feel about it overall? I just need to know. I mean, did you um, feel like this whole platform or this video
Mhm.
or this meeting was beneficial for you?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. For someone like me who Um, well, I read the stuff on the internet, about CRC position and everything. But absolutely, well, like having someone like Ramses
Yes.
to come here and talk about it is absolutely it's very very beneficial and
Mm-hmm.
helpful
Mm-hmm.
because there is a lot that was said and also that I would like to go through later on and to see or like if I need to get a certificate or what do I need to do or based on that how to also I have yours and Damien's responses later on how to
Yes.
modify my resume. So
Yes.
all the things together I think is a good step for me
Mm-hmm.
to become closer to my goal.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and then, of course, shameless plug here. We will be having our CRC, hopefully, course opening up in the fall, which will be taught by a CRC. And then Ramses and I are going to be working on some things too. And I'm hoping he'll be a guest speaker for my courses as well. And, we're going to do some collaboration. However, again, I wanted to bring in someone that's actually doing the job. That way, not just reading, as you mentioned, on the internet, what it's like on a real life day-to-day basis. Of course, it's going to be different, a little different for each CRC, but the basics are the same. So I just want to make for sure that I, bring someone on like that. And then, as I said, the CRC course, all these courses are going to be accredited, and then it's going to come with CREO integration. So you can get the hands-on experience with the EDCs, regulatory uploads, e-source, all those things. It's not going to be 100%. I can't solve every problem, but knowing that there's a gap in this industry and, individuals like yourself that need that kind of training. And then, of course, whenever I get my own site open, then that's going to open up doors for individuals to receive volunteer experience. So, but yeah, I'm just hoping that obviously this was well put together for you and you're satisfied. Is there anything else you would like to see or something that would be helpful for the next cohort of individuals whenever I run something like this?
I don't have anything in mind right now. If I come across, I will let you know later. At
Okay.
this stage, is just that I need to modify my resume. I just need to
Mhm.
go through the notes that Ramses talked about, and I guess preparation for interview. With the questions and the tips and everything.
Okay. Yeah. Ramses, any last words?
Oh, just keep going. Just keep going.
Thank you so much, Ramses. I appreciate it.
All right, this ends the recording, and then Niku, I will be sending this recording to you so you can review at your own time.
Okay, great.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
You're very welcome.